she here?
Yeah,
Loose pants?
this is Joe in the.
I hear I beat you out for that.
I have to. Okay. Okay, are we ready to start? I have it's 15 seconds till 7 o'clock. 13, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, action! All right, well, welcome everyone tonight. I'm sorry we have to wear masks. Oh, I was supposed to take mine off. Well, you can hear me, right? Okay. We just want to be safe. I tried to read whatever the ordinance is, and I swear a lawyer wrote it, and they get paid by the word. So I think the gist of it is we should have masks on. So thank you for doing that. All right, what do we got here? Can you guys put up the other slide for me? Yes. Thank you. All right, so just a reminder, the meeting is being recorded and we are live streaming. So if you want to go back and check something, you can find it through our YouTube channel or through our website. New members, I think we have a few here tonight. Would you mind raising your hand and introducing yourself back in the room? Wonderful. Well, thank you and welcome. I'm not going to tell you there's a wood turning guild, but because we want to keep you. But there is. Okay. What? What? They're in Festus? Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay. So there is a wood turning opportunity to learn more about them. And it's in Festus. Okay. Through their website, you can probably find out. Show me wood turners. Okay. Another member? Bill? No. Wait. There is a Bill. Bill. Then we'll come back to Randy.
My name's Bill Morsack. I just make toys, small stuff for grandkids. I don't do anything big, just little stuff.
That's okay. We do toys too. Okay, Randy, right?
Yeah, Randy, this is my first meeting. I've been here about almost a year, not quite, but due to COVID, I haven't been able to get very active and stuff. So I really am kind of preparing for retirement. I just want to go find furniture once I get there. So.
Okay, good. And are you guys both new as well? Cammie, I think, right?
Yep, my name's Cammie Bathon. Just mostly small woodworking projects, just kind of learning as we're going.
Okay.
Jack Dabrowski. Just enjoy woodworking, but my dad did a lot of woodworking. I have a lot of the tools, and I did some of it when I was younger, and then got into my career, and I'm starting to pick it back up now and get back into it and really try and get good at it.
Well, wonderful. And anyone else? You know, I'll give my two-minute commercial. You know, part of this guild is so much experience that's available to you, and you should not be afraid to ask questions. We have lots of classes at all levels of skill, and we encourage you to take our safety class, which is offered once a month. And then you have access to the shop here in Faust Park. And there's always shop monitor there, and they are available to help answer any of your questions or help guide you on the equipment. But I think if you go through our list of classes, I think you'll find we've got something for everyone. So take a look at that. All right. I have a couple announcements. I think Bill's going to remind everyone about the shop tours this Saturday at John Bronson's and at Joe Turner's. So there's a flyer up here for Joe's, and it says brownies while they last. So, and I think we've got plenty of room for folks to sign up. Also, I had a call today from a young lady whose father is moving north. He recently retired, was going to get into woodworking. So he had accumulated a lot of wood that he's been, I guess, air drying on his property. And he's moving north. And he wants this wood to find a good home. So I assured her we could put it to good use, particularly in our community service projects. And she's going to give me some information so that in the next couple of weeks, because I think he's leaving September 14th, so it'll be a short notice, but as soon as I get it, I'll get it out to everyone when she is accepting people and he's accepting people to come take a look at the wood and take away what we can make good use of. So it seems like we get a lot of requests for people like that. And speaking of that, I wanted to say thank you to all of you that do respond when we have you know, just the public at large who reach out to me or reach out to some of you when they have a problem or a project or something they need help with. Your generosity of your time and skill set is truly appreciated by them and by me, you know, as representing the guild. So thank you for doing that. Okay. Rich told me we collected 482 toys tonight, so the numbers will go in the newsletter, and I do encourage you to continue to check the web and check our newsletter each month with all our different information. I think David Schindler, you may have gotten a message from him if you're on the message board thing about Craft Alliance is looking for 2 teachers to teach young artists and such woodworking, and it's a paying gig. So if you are interested, I would encourage you to definitely get back to the Craft Alliance. Okay. The Craft Alliance? They're not on Delmar anymore? They're on Delmar. By Third Degree, further down? Okay. Well, anyway, that information should be in what went out, or I have it here if somebody wants to look at it. Also, John Bronson wanted me to make sure everybody knows that the mentoring program is alive and well. We would love to have a few more folks that are mentors because, as you heard tonight, we are getting a lot more members that are looking to increase their skill sets. And the more we can match up, everybody wins. Okay. Friday afternoons out at the shop is the Christmas Elves meet and are working on our toys for the Christmas program. So if you're interested, 12 to 4, and we have a list of what we're working on. And after tomorrow, we're going to be putting out calls for some of these items if someone wants to work on it on their own in their own shops, or come and work on it out at Faust Park. But we'll give you an idea of what we're looking for. Okay, that's all my announcements. Christmas toy present. All right. Shop Wayne, I'm so sorry, but I'm having a huge mountain to get over in getting that shed painted. I rescheduled it for next Wednesday, but I think I'm going to just go ahead and cancel it because I think the weather is not going to cooperate. It's going to continue to be way too hot, way too humid, and it might even rain. So I'm sorry, gang, but we'll get it going probably when the weather breaks for good, and then it won't be so oppressive as we get out there. So if you are interested, whenever it's going to be, if you wouldn't mind giving me your name and contact information up on the member table, I'd truly appreciate it. All right, raffle. Anybody? Last ticket? Last tickets? Last tickets? Going, going, gone? Okay, I have 2 gift cards. Dan's going to have one of our presenters draw. You may do 4747. Dang it.
I think I got it.
Well,
It looks torn off.
you have a choice of a $20 Rockler gift card or a $50 Rockler gift card. I'm thinking the 20. No?
You're not thinking for me, though.
I know I know I'm going to get the next one. I was trying to.
Verify if you can.
Well, did you buy more than one?
Yeah, that's in sequence.
Okay. Yes. All right. He won. One more, please. 4738. Man, you always win.
No, he missed last one.
Oh. Yes. Oh, yes. So, thank you, Dale. You get the $20 gift card. Okay, show and tell. We have a couple of items. Dan, would you hand me the show and tell sheet? Okay. Jerry, you want to come on up for your coat rack, please? So the deal is, show it in front of that camera, talk into that microphone. Is there a light switch? Magic.
All right.
Stand on the X.
Before I start on this, I thought I'd mention, because a lot of people don't know, that you realize that Home Depot has an 11% rebate to match Menards?
No kidding. Okay.
Whenever Menards has it, Home Depot has it. So I found out to buy something for $3, I'm on $1.
Oh,
So about every other day, since I go to Home Depot a lot, I'm getting $1 or $7 back, you know. And it's online. You don't have to mail anything. It takes 30 seconds.
even better. Okay.
So I'm picking up receipts.
Microphone is turned on.
Yep. Tech people, is his mic on?
All right.
Check,
I'll
check.
talk louder. So I pick up receipts from parking lots, everything like that. All right. This is,
Raise the microphone up a little more, even if it's not on.
how about this?
Nope. Is there a switch? That should be on.
All right.
Just speaking to the microphone.
I'm a woodworker, not a.
I know. Well, while they're doing that, I want everyone to acknowledge and understand that these guys come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to start setting up all of our AV stuff. So it's a pretty cumbersome task, and thank you guys, Brian, Hal, and David. Thank you.
All right. I retired recently, and I found this, saw this, and I drew up this sketch of this, and I looked at it, and I drew it up in 1990. And it's been sitting there for 30 years waiting for time. So I finally got around to it, and it has some free walnut, which is nice. It's ended up looking more like Frank Lloyd Wright type simplistic. All right, more like a Frank Lloyd Wright. So I don't know if I need to show this to the camera or whatever, but it's the challenge with it is once you cut this walnut, and what I got was raw walnut, so I had to true it up and cut it to straight and plane it and route it and then so forth. But once I got it down to size, it bow on me. And anybody knows, to take out the bow, you make it smaller. So then I had to glue it up, and then it bow on me and all. But I had all the time in the world, so I just kept playing with it. And originally it was 6 foot tall. My wife wanted it shorter, but you can't put it back 6 foot tall again. So, and had fun with the half lap joints. There's 9 of them, and they actually fit at the bottom. So I just had fun playing with it, and ended up looking better than my drawing. And that's it.
Nicely done. Thank you for sharing. And then next up, Keith Lassant has something for us to share.
While I have some time before big crunches get on, I've been making a bunch of ornaments. I often have a couple of craft sales in November and December, so I have to start preparing for it. Also, our street gives everybody on the street a gift of some kind, and my wife and I have been making ornaments of various kinds for people. So this year I made a wooden ornament, basically in tarsia. They're cut out of well, it's aircraft plywood actually, so that it's very thin but very strong. I cut out the front parts, paint them, glue them together, then glue it onto the back and trace it, cut it out, and glue it on, and then I have to sand it all so that it's, and I have a wide variety of colors and about 3 or 4 different patterns that
What kind of paint do you use?
just acrylic.
And then lacquer?
Yeah, it's got a clear
Well, that's very thoughtful. Thank you. Thank you. And then there's really just one more, not so much a show and tell, but more a show and take. Grady has brought in, we're calling a Craftsman planter on wheels. It's the bottom of a dust collection system, shop vac. You tell it.
I had this vacuum cleaner that I got
Microphone.
50 years ago. So I had this vacuum cleaner that I got from Sears about 50 years ago. And the vacuum cleaner burned out on it, and it made a nice little roll-around trash can. Well, it's really too big for my shop's pretty small, and so I don't really need it. So if anyone wants to walk out and take it with them, would be, follow them home
That's right.
if you drag it. But it's for free.
It's
And-
free, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
First
beat the
person
price.
Pulls it out. If it doesn't go out, it'll go out to the dumpster.
Okay, there you have it, folks. All right, Bill Shucott, do you have any announcements to make? I think I have a slide with upcoming programs, don't I?
If we're done with show and tell, I'm looking.
No, it's okay. I'll do it from here. We have 2 shop tours this Saturday, one at John Bronson and one at Joe Turner. You can sign up for them, but I suspect you won't get turned away at the door if you just show up. This Saturday, we also have a class on bandsawn boxes that Wayne Humphrey's going to teach, and I understand there's still some openings in that if you're interested. No more opening, okay. I bet if you show up, he'll take you. Vicki has talked about the Christmas toy committee. I would encourage any beginner woodworkers who are interested and have time and are available on a Friday afternoon to show up. We have a variety of skill levels that can be utilized, as well as doing some ornamental painting on some of the projects. I'm starting to work on classes and presentations for 2022. So if you have any thoughts of presentations you'd like to hear or classes that you would like to see presented, just drop me an email, vicepresident@stlouiswoodworkersguild.com, and I'll try and get those taken care of for you. There was a Lee Jigs class scheduled for the 28th of August that is being rescheduled for October 2 due to a travel conflict that Mike Sistek has and won't be in town. And last but not least, there was an inlay class scheduled for October that has been canceled because the teacher doesn't have time to prepare. So, thank you,
Okay,
Vicki.
thank
It's all
you.
yours.
Okay, can you guys advance the slide for me since you don't let me really do it? No, not that far. So just wanted to mention our next upcoming meeting programs. Adam Connors is going to talk on joinery in September, and Don Turner in October on finishing. So that's what we have coming up. But tonight, we have Ellie Lang and, is it Cal? Cal. Ellie and Cal completed a boat building apprenticeship at the Carpenter's Boat Shop up in Maine. And this is your product, I guess?
It is a product.
A product that we found the secret door to wheel it in. So I'm going to invite them both up to take us through their presentation and tell us about the boats.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Do you need this?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ellie, and this is my partner Cal. And yeah, both of us at separate times went to Maine and did a woodworking and boat building apprenticeship at an organization called the Carpenter's Boat Shop. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what that apprenticeship's like, the experience, and then some of the things that we built. And Cal will cover how to build a cat's paw dinghy. Do I do this for the presentation? Oh. Carpenter's Boat Shop. Yeah, so the Carpenter's Boat Shop is located in Pemaquid, Maine, which is kind of mid-coast Maine on a peninsula. It's super beautiful up there. These are some pictures from over there. Pemaquid Point Lighthouse is actually the lighthouse on the Maine state quarter, which is kind of interesting, and everybody there talks about it. And yeah, just a little bit about the boat shop. They just kind of focus on boat building, woodworking, but also alongside of that, just building community, bringing people together, and kind of being a place to a place of hospitality that people can be, and kind of at crossroads in their lives, or just when they want to meet new community, build new community, and learn new skills.
How did you find out about this?
I found out about it from Cal, and I don't know how, you can say how he found out about it when he comes up. So yeah, and a couple of friends that we both know ended up kind of finding out. I think most people find about it just through other people. In my class, there was people from Hawaii, from London, kind of from everywhere, from the Midwest, from the West Coast. So yeah, and the programs that they offer are, they have just kind of summer programs and classes, kind of scattered throughout the summertime on different topics and things. But the kind of core focus is the apprenticeship program, which still follows kind of a true apprenticeship model or traditional apprenticeship model where you're not paying them, they're not paying you, right? So they're providing you housing, all your food, a lot of basic necessities, some medical kind of care, and you're learning how to build boats and you're building boats for them. So it's a really, really interesting model, and you're living in community with all the people that you're apprenticing with and the instructors. Everyone kind of lives on campus together. So yeah, the boat shop was started by a couple, Ruth and Bobby Ives, who they moved to Pemaquid, Maine in the earlier 70s, I think, and did some different things. They taught, did kind of fishing, lobster fishing, learned about woodworking and boats and sailing. And Bobby Ives went to divinity school, and they eventually kind of built this kind of broader community in Pemaquid and in the area, and opened the boat shop, which was sort of the ministry for them. That's Ruth and Bobby Ives. That's Bobby Ives is retired now. Ruth died some years back, but Bobby still lives on the peninsula, and that's him giving a presentation to my apprenticeship class. So they got this white farmhouse from the 1800s, and the barn in the back was the shop. Everyone lived in the white farmhouse, and that was it. I think the first class had 3 apprentices, and it was kind of meant for people at a crossroads. So I think there were people who were kind of ex-cons, or someone who just finished school and didn't know where to be. Oh, sorry, I thought you were stopping me. And yeah, and it kind of just built from there. Eventually they got another farmhouse through just a ton of donations. These people are super charismatic. Everyone loves them, and they really can bring people together. So this was made possible from other donations, and it's just kind of right across the street from the other farmhouse. So folks live here, folks live in the white farmhouse, the red farmhouse, and more recently, the picture's kind of dark, but the new shop, which is absolutely beautiful and has lots of space and everything you need to build boats. So kind of life at the boat shop is really, there's a huge focus on community. You're living and working with the 20 people. So you can imagine that they kind of have a commitment to diversity and learning and growing with each other. And you can imagine that living with the same 20 people and working with them definitely necessitates some growth and just some figuring things out together. And it really is, you spend a lot of time with these people, so you kind of become a family. Kalen Nee is another person who's actually in the Woodworkers Guild, and I know him from the boat shop. We were in the same apprenticeship class, and he moved to St. Louis recently for a, yeah.
The boats and stuff that you guys build, do they turn around and sell them, or are they compete or what?
They sell them, yeah. So basically the program is funded by selling the boats. There's some furniture and other things that people will build too, and yeah, it's funded by that in combination with just donations and some grants, I think. So, yeah. And yeah, boat shop people always say, like the staff and stuff are always saying, we're not just here to build boats, we're here to build community, do hospitality, serve one another, kind of have a greater understanding for the world we live in and how we fit. These are just some photos of life at the boat shop. So every day during the week you work, and there's tea time. This is something that's been long running that Ruth Ives started. There's tea time every single weekday at 10 o'clock, and it's 20 minutes long, so everybody stops working, comes and gets tea, coffee, snacks. People from just anywhere in town stop by, former apprentices stop by, just people's friends and families stop by. A few times people just were vacationing, passing through town, heard about it and stopped by. So that's kind of a call to that kind of core hospitality that the Ives were really, really about. But yeah, each apprentice takes a turn. So if there's 10 apprentices, one in every 10 work days, you're the DE, the domestic engineer. So you don't work in the shop and you cook all the meals for everyone all day long. And so there's a lot of just shared duties, shared chores, things like that. You never know kind of what you're going to get into. Played pond hockey. People get into making all kinds of things. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience there. So people built tools and furniture, and other people built separate boats that, on their own time. And the shop is open for you to use after hours and on the weekends, which is great. And there's a restoration shop and kind of a new build shop. So you kind of get both. You get old boats coming in that were built, 50 years ago at the shop by the apprenticeship class. Maybe I guess not 50 years ago if it was that class, but places to hike and go to the beach, things like that. So for me, it was just an amazing experience. I love living in community. I already had before for 7 years. It was nice to meet a new community, to be in a new place, kind of just focus on learning a new skill. I didn't really know anything about boats. I had some carpentry experience, but not really any fine woodworking experience. And so I learned so much. You can imagine in 9 months, just how much you learn. That's all you're doing, right? That's your full-time work. So there's a lot of opportunities to go sailing. We pressed apples to make cider, a whole truckload of apples. So yeah, that's kind of what life at the boat shop is like. And the boat that every apprenticeship class builds is a Monhegan skiff. The picture down here is of old Monhegan skiffs on Monhegan Island, which is an island nearby. The person who designed the boat created it other people use it too, but specifically for fishermen who lived on Monhegan Island. The protected side of the island, and I don't even know, I think even more recently the dock was expanded. It's a very small dock. There's not really a lot of space, and so they needed a tender to go right from shore to the mooring for people to go to their fishing boats. They needed them to be strong, sturdy, but also able, light enough to be able to be pulled up onto the beach. And so that's the design. And the creator eventually, I don't know if he had an accident or an illness, but he lost his eyesight and he couldn't build them anymore. So he kind of passed this design on to Bobby Ives, and the boat shop has been building them ever since. So we built a lot of skiffs my year, quite a few, I think 15. Yeah. And then I was just going to share a few of the things that Cal will talk more about the cat's paw, but a few of the things that I found really interesting or liked doing when I was at the boat shop. One is a scarf joint. Scarfing is a traditional kind of boat and shipbuilding joint that I just found really fun to make. I loved scarfing. So you can see in this picture, Sarah, one of the instructors, is laying these two boards out to lay out the scarf. And the pattern is sitting right next to it, right? So that they're at an angle, they're gonna be joined at an angle such that it can accommodate the curve of the pattern for the plank. And to create the joint, we just used a slick and then a hand plane, and it's a simple scarf is what we used, and it's just, each board in an opposite way goes from full thickness to paper thin over the course of at least 6 inches. I think it kind of depends on the application. And it's glued up, and it's a really strong joint even when you're bending the plank onto the side of a boat. So I liked doing that. There it is, glued up. And then another thing that I really liked doing, it's maybe a little harder to describe, but I don't have amazing pictures of it, but is gain joints. And I had never heard of them until I was doing boat building. But so a lap strake boat, obviously the planks are overlapping one on top of the other. But when they come to the stem of the boat, they need to be flush, and they need to be flush with one another and against the stem, right? So water's not coming in and it's tight. And so to do that, you're creating a kind of a compound angles and a compound bevel that the edge of I can kind of point to it, I guess, but so that the edge of this corner, imagine that's 0, right? And this, where it starts, is full thickness, and so it's going to be angled this way and that way, and both planks are going to do that to match up perfectly and create that joint where they will be flush with one another and lay on the stem nicely. You can kind of see the joint that's already cut into that one. And that's the jig that the skiffs are built on. So we screw the stem to the front, screw the transom to the back, and steam bend the planks across. I don't know why that one's off the jig before the other planks are on, but yeah, kind of put the chines in and then do the bottom boards. Fitting ribs is another thing that I kind of hated and loved at the same time. You can see that you're dealing again with kind of compound angles and bevels, that you are taking a chisel and taking a little bit off and then fitting it and doing a little bit more and fitting it over and over again, hoping that you don't kind of overcorrect, because then you have to take a little bit off everywhere, right, once you've messed up. So that took a lot of patience, but I really enjoyed doing it. Pretty gratifying. People probably know about just plugs in, if you have a board and you have a bad knot or something like that. In the rest of the woodworking world, they're called plugs. In boat building, it's the exact same thing, but they're called bungs, which everyone in my class thought was really kind of funny, a funny word. And yeah, kind of lastly, I didn't know anything about wooden boats, so I thought it was really interesting that traditionally some cotton, strands of cotton or cotton twine are used in between the joints that are going to be in the water. So in this case, we're pushing them in between the bottom boards, and in between the bottom boards themselves, and then here in between the bottom board and the garboard plank, so that if or when water does seep in, it will expand and against the wood and prevent more water from coming in. And the same thing with that little line that's kind of going along the garboard. It's just used with a dull piece of metal, and you kind of draw the line, so you're compressing the wood fibers. And again, then if water gets in, it'll expand above the line, right, that the rest of the garboard is cut at, and prevent more water from coming in. So those are just some of the things I thought were really interesting that I learned there. And lastly, yeah, this is our first skiff. That was so half of the class, that was my group, and we made that skiff together. And this was us launching it, all getting in. You can see it's not made for quite that many people. We're sinking. But yeah, the last kind of most interesting thing that I learned is that wooden boats leak when you put them in the water, because right, you're using wood that's dry. It can't be too dry, but right, or relatively dry for moisture content. And when you put it in the water, it leaks as the wood is expanding and gaining a higher moisture content, and then it seals up all the cracks. So Bobby Ives told us about how, you know, the first time he brought someone's wooden boat out that had been up in a barn or something, he put it in, he was like, this boat leaks, this is terrible, right? Not knowing that that's what happens when you put wooden boats in the water. So that's kind of about the boat shop, and I hand it over to Cal.
All right, hey everybody. My name is Cal Maginell. I also got to do the apprenticeship that Ellie was just talking about. Mine was in 2010 and 11. And I originally heard about it through 3 different sources that were kind of timely in nature. Someone who I went to college with was going there. My sister heard about it at the same time and was telling me about it. And then a friend that I was living near at the time I was in Vermont had just heard about it and wanted to go apply. So the way, I don't know if Ellie mentioned this, but the way you apply for the apprenticeship, at least when I was there, is you go the year before, you have a 3-day visit, and during those 3 days you basically do everything that one of the apprentices does. And this is kind of in an effort to, or for you to determine whether or not this is the right choice for you. Because again, you're not being paid for almost a year, and for some people that can be kind of a big decision. So so I got to do my 3-day visit at the same time that my friend from college was there, which was kind of fun. And he took us sailing, and that was the first time I'd been sailing, and I fell in love with it and was really excited to go back to finish my, finish my 3-day visit and apply and go to the boat shop next year. So I did that. And during my interview, I happened to mention that I'd also been accepted to the Peace Corps. And they put me 5th down the wait list, and I found this out after I got there. So I did not get accepted, and I was lucky enough that 5 other apprentices dropped out, and they called me a month before it was supposed to start and said, hey, if you want to do this, come on up. So I'm really glad I got to. It was a great experience. So I will figure out, does this have a pointer? Is it the little red line? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay, thanks.
Just keep in mind our
Right. And they can see this, but they can't see the pointer, correct? Okay. All right, so I'm going to describe how to build that boat in about 6 slides. It's obviously really easy to build, so no big deal. But I'll talk a little bit about it first. So this is a Joel White design. Joel White is actually E.B. White's son, the writer. He decided at some point that he wanted to build boats and started designing boats too. And he turned out to be really good at it. So he took this old Columbia dinghy design, which used to have a deeper keel, and I think it had a dagger board when it was designed for sailing. That also allowed him to lessen the draft. So the draft is the amount of boat that's underwater at any given point when it's in the water. And so that allowed him narrower places. And then the center board, if you ever hit a rock or something, it can pivot up into the boat without breaking. But also it allows for the boat to still be sealed. So the center board lives inside the center board trunk. We can go look at that later. But so the dimensions of the boat are over there, but it's 12 foot 8 feet. It's got a 4.5 foot beam or so, 65 square foot sail, and the sail is rigged. That's called a sprit sail, and so the sprit is the long post that goes up at an angle, and that's held in place by something called a snotter, which is just a little rope that kind of rests on the mast, and that tightens the sprit and holds the sail in shape. So there's no boom. So you don't ever have to worry about some piece of wood whacking you in the head when you're coming about or anything like that. The other nice thing about sprit sails are the sprit can be exactly as long as the mast. The mast, because it doesn't have to be as tall as a normal triangular sail, or the more traditional, actually this is a very traditional sail, but the more typical, I should say, sail designs require a very tall mast, which means they also require like metal wires called stays to help deal with all the extra pressures on them. This boat doesn't have any of that. So the neat thing about that is the mast, the sprit, the sail, all of it can store inside the boat itself. So it's very easy transport. One person can step the mast. You don't have to, have friends or helping you put all the stays or anything silly like that. So it's a really convenient design. Also, because it was originally a rowing dinghy, the Columbia dinghy was more used as a tender for rowing. This boat actually rows super well. It's very comfortable to be in. It moves quickly through the water. It's a joy to row. Okay. So I'm gonna dive in. Like I said, this is yeah. There's a lot to this, but first to start out, we cut out the bevel in the stem that the planks actually fit into, at the same time as another person. So we were working in a group of 3 for this boat. Another person was laying out the keel, which is white oak. So the white oak stem, keel, and transom. And then the transom right here at this point you can see has already been attached to the keel. But it kind of looks like a fishtail when you don't have planks on it. And the center photo, that line of holes right there, that's going to be where the center board lives. So that's the slot for the center board inside the keel. And this is my instructor, Kenneth, and I. So I got to lay out the bevel for the stem, but it's a compound bevel that changes as the planks come into the stem. It changes angle as it goes up. So we had a jig and some kind of complicated shenanigans to get that thing to work. So again, like I said, blowing through this because we don't have a lot of time. But so the next thing we do is you can see the photo on the left. The boat is now upside down. The keel, the stem, and the transom are all upside down on a jig. And we've got these things called rib bands. So that is the shape of the boat on the jig, but underneath the ribs. So we're going to steam bend the ribs. That's what's going on over here. We're steam bending the ribs onto those rib bands. So the rib bands help keep the ribs in the correct shape, and then later we're going to start planking on top of those ribs. Does that make sense? Okay.
How are you steaming them?
So
In a steamer then?
yes. So the steam box is the same one that we ultimately also used for the planks, and the boat shop has in the new shop, it's about a 15-foot steam box that's up in a corner against the wall, and then there's a big burner and a big vat of water and a big hose that goes up to the steam box in a couple places. But yeah, everything there were a couple things that we poured boiling water on because we needed it, or hot rags too, boiling water with rags, because we needed it to really sit and soak. But for generally everything we did, it was just in the steam box. Any other questions? Also white oak. Yes. Okay. So the garboard is the first plank. I think Ellie mentioned the word garboard too. So where it meets the ribs here, you can see on the far left photo. Oh, well, that's your all's left. The garboard has to have a compound bevel connection because it twists. It has the most twist to it of all the planks. So that was pretty complicated. We also have to put little chunks of. So the planks are eastern white cedar, or Atlantic cedar is another name for it, and so you put a little tiny, like a triangle of that eastern white cedar onto each rib, which we'll be able to look at when we look at the boat in person, because the ribs, where they attach to the keel, they're prowed a little bit, and so the garboard plank has to have something to rest on, so when you stand in the boat or bump against something, it doesn't just split. So that way it impacts the ribs. So those were all little compound angles and hand fitting these little triangles. But once you get the garboard on, it's pretty easy from then on. So the planks are similar to what Ellie was talking about. You have gains on the ends so that they can fit together. This is obviously a lapstrake boat. Carvel planked would mean each plank meets exactly like that, and there's no overlap. So those Carvel plank boats, on a side note, move through the water quietly. This has a like murmur all the time because the water's kind of splashing through the planks. Okay, so this is moving on with the steam bending and placing the planks. So as you can see, it requires a few people to help hold them and a whole crap load of clamps. And then those fasteners are actually temporary. So the plank will not be fastened to the actual ribs until later. The planks are held in place while they dry after being steamed, and then they keep their shape, and you can actually pull them off and shape things. And but that process right there, the photo on the right is us placing the planks, and then we'll leave it to dry overnight, and then the next day we can pull it off and cut the gains in it correctly and stuff like that. Any questions? Okay, so we've pulled the boat off the jig here, and this is you'll notice all the copper rivets in this boat, but there are probably 1,000 copper rivets. Every connection with a plank to the rib requires a copper rivet. So that was just a single copper nail, drill a hole with a bushing on the back end, and you peen it over. And at the same time, the centerboard trunk is being built. So the centerboard trunk will have a cap on it, but it's got a pivot pin, and so the centerboard and a rope on one side, so you can pull the centerboard up when you want to, or push it down, and then it'll dangle in the water. And the next photo here in the middle is actually, so the photo on the far left and the photo in the middle, we cut a slot in the centerboard and we fill it with lead BBs, and we put it as sunken epoxy. So that's the weight to help hold the centerboard down. Otherwise, the force of the water as you're sailing would actually want to kick it up into the boat, and then your what's called the center of lateral resistance would leave, and then you wouldn't be able to turn straight. So kind of important. I'll back up real quick. So the other thing that we're doing, so the photo on the far left, we're starting to fit the knees in the back of the boat, and I don't have a photo of it, but we also have to fit what's the thing in the front of the boat called? Breast hook, yes, thank you. So this is the photo on the far right. We're putting the first coat of caps oil in. And so this boat that's here and the boat that we're building in that photo has one part, give me a second, 1 part varnish, 2 parts turpentine, 4 parts linseed oil. And you can decrease that varnish amount depending on how long you want the boat to not turn black. So linseed oil in the sun turns black eventually. So our workboat oil had pine tar, linseed oil, and turpentine. So the turpentine is just a thinner to help get the stuff to go into the wood deeper. But those were our 2 boat oils. If someone wanted a boat that was oiled, it would either be the workboat oil or the caps oil. Okay, so now we're installing the seat risers. The photo on the far right, you can see the seat riser that runs along the inside. That's also white oak. What's this middle? Oh, so the middle photo is fairing out the knees on the far back side, and then the far left photo is putting in one of the seat thwarts. And as you can see, the centerboard's coming together in this photo. And the finishing touches are to put the seat boards, the actual planks for the seats in, and our cute little sign, which you all can read. And that's a photo of one of the finished cat's paw dinghies, not this one, obviously. All right, is that it? Yes, so how long did it take to finish that boat? We started our cat's paw dinghy in December, right before the December break. I think it was like December 15th or so. And ours was a sailing model. At the same time, they built a separate one that was a rowing only model. The second one didn't start until the end of January. And they were both pretty much finished by the end of the boat shop year, which was first week of June. I stayed on for that summer, and there were some finishing touches, like I want to say I helped like wrap the oars with leather and stuff like that. But it was mostly complete after, I guess that's 5.5, 6 months. Yeah, so the question is, did we buy this boat? So yes, this boat was built the year before Ellie's apprentice year. No, 2 years before, right? 2 years before. And my parents actually commissioned this boat in honor of a good friend of ours who passed away. She was from New England, and Moxie was her favorite drink. And so we asked the boat shop to go ahead and build a boat that had Moxie colors, which the Moxie, sorry? Oh yeah, the boat shop. Everyone was pretty convinced it was not going to look good together. So Moxie soft drinks are the cans are orange, blue, and gray. Hence this boat, and you'll notice on the back there's a hand painted sign with the name Moxie on it. Any other quick questions? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the question was what kind of glue in the scarf joints? So that's epoxy. We epoxied the scarf joints together, and I remember wrapping them in black plastic so that the epoxy, when it squeezed out, wouldn't wouldn't glue itself to the table. Yeah, we Ellie just mentioned that we would heat the planks a little bit so that the epoxy would kind of get absorbed into the wood a little better. It's partial end grain when you have those scarf joints, so it does want to go in, but the Atlantic cedar for some reason doesn't soak up. It's kind of reticent to soak stuff up, probably because of the oils that also help make it rot resistant. Yeah, Wayne. You say ribbon? The ribs? The ribs. That is a good question. I think we sawed those. We did not. So I don't think we could get our hands on green white oak, but I do know that earlier in our year, that Kenneth guy who was my instructor, he's actually a chair builder by trade. So we did do green woodworking for chairs, but I think we sawed those ribs. And we definitely had some split that was expected, and we'd pitch those and get another one. Yeah, go ahead. So the question was, do we always use white oak? For the cat's paw dinghies, I think the answer is yes to white oak. So we had access to ash. We had hard maple up there and soft maple. One of the things that we talked a little bit about using was black locust, because that's equivalent in strength and rot resistance. But the main reason for using white oak was the rot resistance and really like ease of getting clean grain too. But it's definitely more durable than maple. Yes. Wayne, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Correct, yeah. So Wayne just mentioned that white oaks are not ring porous. They have these things called tyloses inside the long, what are those things called? The things that carry water. Xylem, yes, thank you. So those tyloses help stop water from tracking down the xylem. Red oaks, on the other hand, don't have that.
I think there were, just to add to that, in the resto shop, I think that there were a few cat's paws that came in. There was one made of ash, where the ribs were ash, and there was another one that I can't really remember right now, but it seemed like they had experimented, from years before, and kind of just stuck with the white oak, which was another just interesting thing about being in the restoration shop. You're seeing the improvements that people have made, right? As you get boats that come in and what problems they have and what you need to fix and what's the easiest way to fix them. Sometimes boats would come in and the instructor would say, "Ah, man, this is back when we made them like this. It's gonna be hard to fix, right? Or harder to take apart or whatever." So just working in the restoration shop was super interesting to be able to see how things evolved over time and how can I make something that's going to be easy to repair, not if you have to repair it, but when you have to repair it, right? So.
Yeah, go ahead.
What have you, woodworking projects since you did your class? What have you done since?
That's a good question. So the question was, what woodworking projects have we done since being at the Woodworkers Guild? So when the Carpenter's Boat Shop. The first thing I did when I got back from the Carpenter's Boat Shop, prior to having this boat, was I acquired a sailboat on Craigslist for $200 that had a hole in it, and I fixed it and I sailed because that was one of my favorite things to do at the boat shop. After that, I started building a sailing kayak because I had a half-finished sea kayak laying around, which I hadn't actually built, but a friend of ours had started building and never finished. I also never finished that. It's still hanging up in the loft somewhere. But I had grand plans for how to make a kayak sail. I think it was not going to work, but I wanted to try. Let's see. Beyond that, just like smaller woodworking projects, but
Some furniture.
yeah.
Built a table for my cousins and more just small.
Oh yeah,
things.
one of her other cousins is getting married, so we're cleaning up cookies for their centerpieces for their table. But yeah, nothing big, except I guess our house
The
project.
mortuary.
Yeah. There's a question in the back first.
The ribs, are they solid or are they laminated?
The question is, are the ribs solid or laminated? And they are solid.
Yeah.
In fact, everything on that boat is solid. Nothing was laminated. So the stem is 3 pieces of wood, the sawn wood, that are glued together to get that curve. But everything else is solid and either steam bent or just the way it was, basically.
If you don't mind saying how expensive is a boat like that?
Yes. So question is how expensive it was, that specific boat. So my parents commissioned that. It was about $10,000. They sell cat's paw dinghies for cheaper, but that was with the trailer, and we got like a different color sail. It was more of a donation in this boat's specific case. When I was there was a sailing boat that was a wooden boat that was on a rack out of the water and had been for years and was kind of falling apart. And it was called a Booth Bay Harbor, which Booth Bay is a town that's very close to where the Carpenter's Boat Shop is. And a family acquired that boat and gave it to the boat shop under the auspices that if we finished it, so they gave us $10,000 and said, when you finish this boat, we want to be able to sail it for 2 weeks out of the year. For the rest of the year, you all can have it. So we actually had a Booth Bay Harbor is a racing vessel.
That's a Rosebud?
That's Rosebud, yeah. So we had another one that was exactly like it, because they were one designs, which you build a bunch of hulls all the exact same, and then you can race them, and you can say which sailor's better, because it wasn't the hull, supposedly. So we had one exactly like it. But my year, we finished out that boat, which is called Rosebud. So I got to spend a lot of time working on a 22-foot racing boat, too, which was a pretty neat thing. Yeah, go ahead.
There are a lot of copper rivets in there. You referred to them as copper nails that you riveted over. Can you talk a little bit about the copper rivets and why they use those over other fasteners?
Yeah, so the question is, why use copper fasteners instead of any other fastener. So in the boats that are, in the cat's paw dinghies in particular, that are oiled. So we made ones that are painted, and the boat shop prefers to make painted ones because obviously, like any imperfections in the planks, you can see if it's oiled, right? In the painted versions, they use screws, and they're wood screws. I think they're number 10s.
I know they're number 10s.
Yeah, and they just screwed into each plank, and then they put a bung on the top of them. The copper rivets, that's more of a workboat style, and the reason that people, especially fishermen, would ask for copper rivets is because you, as the owner, can actually tighten that seam. All you have to do is put a bucking iron on the bottom, on the nail head side, and then peen off the peen side, and it'll actually tighten that joint. So when I say copper nails, they were actually copper roofing nails. I don't remember what size we used, but then it was a copper washer that was placed on the other side. So you slide that down, pinch off the copper nail with some pliers, and then peen it off, and you can tighten it as much as you want, pretty much.
Which we did a lot of in the resto shop.
Yeah.
Just tightening them, right, as people use it over the years. We just did that a lot in the restoration shop when cat's paws would come in. You're just going through all of them and tightening, or at least on the spots that seem like they need it the most. Yeah.
Any power tools used, or everything done by hand?
There's definitely power. What?
Repeat the question.
Oh yeah, were any power tools used, or was it all done by hand? Definitely power tools were used. You know, there's a table saw and band saws and things like that, but a lot of it, you know, like compound bevels and things for the knees, or you have to do by hand, fairing things out at the end. So definitely we use power tools, but also, you know, a lot of hand tools, a lot of time with hand tools, a lot of time with chisels and hand planes and things like that. A lot of patience.
And a lot of practice sharpening.
A lot of sharpening. A lot.
Yeah, I think the sharpening station saw more use than like the bathrooms, for example.
Yeah. No, I think they were just traditional bandsaws. Yeah, 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. If were they traditional bandsaws or not? Yeah, they were just regular ones. Yeah. Yeah, asking about the hardware and the fittings. Did we make it? No. I'm not sure where they got them. Do you know?
Yeah, I used to know. I think I want to say it's out of Jamestown, Rhode Island. There's a company there that makes boat fittings in bronze in particular. And so, like, you can buy all these parts individually in various sizes. But that said, we had, like, if we needed to bolt, like, for example, there's a keel on the underside of the boat, and there's a thing called a skeg that pokes down in the back. So when we bolted the skeg to the keel, we fastened our own out of bronze rod. We fastened our own bolts for that, or we fashioned, sorry, our own bolts for that. We threaded them and cut them to the right length, that kind of thing. So some parts of it we were able to fashion there, but we didn't do any like bronze smelting or anything like that. Like the oarlocks, you can buy those, that kind of thing.
The question was, did anybody goof up their boat? There were definitely goof ups, yeah. You know, walking in the door, there's no, you kind of talked about the process of applying to the boat shop. You apply, but there aren't, you know, there's not qualifications that people have to meet. Some people walk in with a ton of sailing experience or woodworking experience. Even the instructors have different kind of backgrounds. One of them does timber, she does timber framing, and kind of low-key got into boats a little bit and was learning over the years more about boats with all of her carpentry experience she already had. But yeah, so you have people, you might have 10 people who've never done woodworking ever, right? And so starting off with small projects, but yeah, even by the end of the year, and even people who have been doing woodworking for a long time, there's always some goof ups, but I don't think we had anything so tragic that it, something couldn't be salvaged or something like that. Yeah.
You're talking about plugs, you call them bungs. Are they tapered when you put those in?
No, they're not.
What, because water, as it swells,
Yeah.
push them back out.
Sure. The question was talking about the plugs that are used in woodworking, or in boat building, which in boat building they're called bungs. No, they're not tapered. They're tight, but we just epoxy them in, and same thing. Sometimes especially in the winter, we'd kind of warm things up so that the epoxy would penetrate, and always we were sure to make the grain be going the same direction, if that makes sense, so that when it inevitably expands and contracts, that it's doing that in the same direction. But that's it. And even in the restoration job, I don't think having like failed bungs was the issue that we really encountered very much. Yeah. Oh, okay. He's saying that there's if anyone's interested in boat building, there are 2 YouTube channels. Maybe we can like link to it or something like that. Yeah. Sure, yeah. Yeah. Asking about the apprenticeship and what's that structured like. So yeah, when both of us did it, it was a 9-month-long apprenticeship, and a lot of people would stay on for this following summer. So both of us ended up being there about a year. But actually recently, I think because of COVID, maybe they changed the model. So they have, instead of 1 9-month-long apprenticeship, there are 2 4-month-long apprenticeships. But I think that the structure, kind of daily structure, is still the same. They're shared meals, so on the weekends are yours and the evenings are yours. But in the morning, on the weekdays, you wake up, everyone eats breakfast together, goes to the shop, and works until tea time. Do tea time, work again. Everyone has lunch together. You can sign out if you just want to have your own time in your own space, and then there's a half an hour break just so everyone can kind of do their own thing and have a little time to themselves, and then back to the shop until 5, and dinner's at 6. If you want to have dinner there, you can sign out too, or just like take some food back to a different spot to eat also, which people did sometimes. You kind of just need your own space sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of a typical day, and what you're working on, it totally depends. The apprentices get split up into groups that get changed around. So typically there would be 3 or 4 apprentices with each instructor. So 3 or 4 people in the restoration shop with that instructor, 3 or 4 people each, two groups, I guess, with each of 2 instructors in the new construction kind of shop. So that's kind of what how it's set up, or how the days kind of go. I don't know, but you can't repeat it, but there are opportunities for people to come back as I don't know if this is always the case, kind of, from the inception of the boat shop, but when I was there, and I know for at least a handful of years prior and currently, there's a instructor position that is kind of meant for a former apprentice. So someone will stay on, or somebody who's been gone for a few years will come back and be the kind of third instructor.
So I'll talk a little bit more about the day and about like the course of your actual time there too. So they do a few other things that we didn't talk about. One of which is like they raise chickens for everybody. So they'll have 35, 40, maybe 60, I don't remember. Just a ton of chickens that one day everyone stops all the work in the shop and you process chickens, and then that's your meat for the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same was true for like the apple day. So they'll put away 30 gallons of apple cider every year because there's an apple orchard nearby that gives us apples for free as long as we pick them up off the ground, kind of thing. The community, the boat shop apprentices and greater community service a lot of the elderly folk in the area in the sense of snow. So I remember in the winter, every time it snowed, first thing we do is get ourselves free, and then we go shovel people's driveways.
Pretty much all day.
Yeah.
Every day that it snows.
One thing that I also remember was my year, the middle school got so much snow that they were concerned about the roof, so we got on the roof and shoveled snow off the roof all day at the middle school.
There's an organization also called CHIP, which I'm trying to remember what the acronym is for, but the CHIP shed is a space that people would, kind of like a free box, if you know like that concept, but people would, or we would go pick up a lot of times. So during the day, they'd be like, hey, we have a chip run. Can somebody go do this, right? Someone would call and say, I have a refrigerator that I don't need anymore. And so we'd go pick up the refrigerator as long as it was in good working order, bring it to the chip shed, and anyone can take it. And if we hear people in the area, people call CHIP and say, you know, my refrigerator broke and I can't afford to buy one, then they can come get it, or we would bring it to them, right? So that's another program that's a separate organization from the boat shop, but still kind of a sister organization, I would say, with the boat shop. Yeah, so those kinds of things were kind of, throughout your week, throughout your year. Each day there would just be, oh, we need XYZ thing done. We need a couple people, right? So people would kind of take breaks and take breaks from the shop work and go do things like that, or random stuff around the boat shop, the campus that needed done. So every Thursday was chore day. So all morning before lunch, everyone does chores. We just split everything up. And then also on Thursdays was an hour-long, we called ours, at my group called it Circle, but kind of a reflection period. And that would just be kind of anything. The instructors would lead it sometimes, but also the apprentices would lead sometimes, and it could have been anything from discussing a current issue to singing songs that somebody wants to sing, or journaling, or writing poetry, someone bringing in a reading and we discuss it, right? Just anything. But they really wanted to focus on having some time for kind of personal growth and development, and for people to kind of, be able to get to know one another, get to know people that you're living with, that you've, at the beginning at least, that you've just met. And to kind of, I think the point, right, just kind of to push your own boundaries a bit and kind of be challenged to see things differently than you might have before, so.
In that vein, too, the apprentices are asked to do 3 days alone on one of 2 islands that the boat shop has access to. So that's usually on a weekend, and they'll drop you off, and you get to be out there alone on the island for 3 days, and then they come get you at the end. I think I mentioned a little bit about sailing too, but they have several wooden boats that they've either been given or have built that they maintain for apprentices to learn to sail on.
Yeah.
So.
And the people really are from just kind of everywhere. And in my class, at least, I think the youngest person was 21 and the oldest person was 67. So you kind of just get whoever you get. And I think when people, I don't know how they pick people. I think they just try to pick a kind of a diverse group of people with different experiences kind of coming in. So I guess, I don't know, I haven't been on the committee to pick people, but.
Any other questions?
People are welcome to check it out and ask more questions after if you think of any.
Yeah, I would say it's the ultimate show and tell. So those of you that hadn't had a chance to check out their boat, please do so. I mean, It's beautiful, and what a great learning experience, and just what a great life experience it sounds like. So we have a lot of newly retired folks. Maybe that's someplace you want to check out, but I'm not so sure about the chicken thing. I eat chicken, I don't kill chicken. So I think that's, if you could go to our last slide, just as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Were you comfortable here tonight with masks? We okay coming back next month? Okay, well, we'll follow whatever the CDC guidelines are, so be prepared, though, I think, to have a mask. Probably September, October, many of us will start getting our booster shots, and that's okay, too. So, thank you, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month on the 16th.